Hey, thanks for jumping on and checking out Flatirons Online. We are so glad that you're here with us. We're kicking off this brand new series called Famous Last Words because we believe that almost everything you need to know about Jesus could be summed up in some of his last words. If you have any questions or you need to connect with us, you can do that on our website or on any of our social media accounts. Thanks for watching.
Hey, good morning, Flatirons. We're so glad you all are here this morning. Let's stand up together. Let's sing and worship our awesome God today. Come on. You, my God, forgive my sin. You, my God, heal my brokenness. In you, my God, my life redeemed. You crown me with love and with mercy. Yeah. Come on, let's sing. Oh, my soul will praise the Lord. Oh, my soul will praise the Lord. I will count every blessing. I will never forget. Oh, my soul will praise the Lord. Out of dust my life begins, free from shame. Now my soul will sing. Your breath, my God, has filled my lungs. My praise now will rise for all you have done. Oh, my soul will praise the Lord. Oh, my soul will praise the Lord. I will count every blessing. I will never forget. Oh, my soul will praise the Lord. As high as the heavens are above the earth, so great is His faithful love. So great is His faithful love. As far as the sunrise lies beyond the west, He's taken our sins from us. He's taken our sins from us. As high as the heavens are above the earth, so great is His faithful love. So great is His faithful love. As far as the sunrise lies beyond the west, He's taken our sins from us. He's taken our sins from us. We praise. Oh, my soul will praise the Lord. Yeah. Oh, my soul will praise the Lord. I will count every blessing. I will never forget. Oh, my soul will praise the Lord. Oh, my soul will praise the Lord. Oh, my soul will praise the Lord. I will count every blessing. I will never forget. Oh, my soul will praise the Lord. See Him now, the King of heaven, Son of God, enthroned above. Heavy cross upon His shoulders, carry for us, carry for us. See Him now, a King surrendered.
for us, spoken for us. When he said it is finished, oh, our hope had just begun. Come on. The grave has lost its hold. Arise, the stone is gone. Dark God reigns forevermore. It's all praise to him belongs. Lives high, his name alone. Jesus came, paid it all, and then he rose. Then he rose. Now we rise by his Spirit. In his name we overcome. It's all our hope in this same power living in us, living in us. For our sin is defeated. Oh, the war has now been won. Yeah. The grave has lost its hold. Arise, the stone is gone. Our God reigns forevermore. It's all praise to him belongs. Lives high, his name alone. Jesus came, paid it all, and then he rose. And then he rose. Hey, we serve a God that brings dead things to life. And that's not just reserved for after we die. God looks at our lives and he sees the things that are dead, and he wants to lift them. So we can sing this in confidence. We sing, death, lay your weapons down. Sin, you're defeated now. The stone is rolled away. It's our God reigns. Come on, this is our hope this morning. Crown him with many crowns. Soon every knee will bow. The stone is rolled away. It's our God reigns. We say, death, lay your weapons down. Sin, you're defeated now. The stone is rolled away. Our God reigns. Crown him with many crowns. Soon every knee will bow. The stone is rolled away. It's our God reigns. Come on, lift up a shout of praise. The grave has lost its hold. Arise, the stone is gone. It's our God reigns forevermore. It's all praise to him belongs. Lives high, his name alone. Jesus came, paid it all, and then he rose. Then he In the darkness we were waiting, without hope, without light, till from heaven you came running. There was mercy in your eyes to fulfill the law and prophets.
To a virgin came the word, from a throne of endless glory to a cradle in the dirt. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. To reveal the kingdom coming and to reconcile the lost, to redeem the whole creation. You did not despise the cross, for even in your suffering you saw to the other side, knowing this was our salvation. Jesus, for our sake you died. Oh yes, Jesus, we praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. In the morning that you rose, all of heaven held its breath, till that stone was moved for good, for the Lamb had conquered death. And the dead rose from their tombs, and the angels stood in awe, for the souls of all who come to the Father are restored. And the church of Christ was born, and the Spirit lit the flame. Now this gospel truth of old shall not kneel, shall not fade. By His blood and in His name, in His freedom I am free. For the love of Jesus Christ, who has resurrected me. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King. We sing praise, praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. Praise forever to the King of Kings. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Flatiron. So glad you're here today. Go ahead and take a moment and greet someone around you, shake someone's hand, and you can take your seat.
Flatirons, how are we? We having a good weekend? Yeah, some of us are. That's cool. Online, I hope you're having a better weekend than the people here at Lafayette. Okay, and to all the groups who are watching from just around the country, even some around the world, just we're so glad you're with us. Will you guys join me in welcoming the gentlemen of God behind bars, and just so glad that you're with us. Hey, some people asked me last week, they were like, hey, what is Zach okay? What happened to Zach? And here's the thing I want to tell you about Zach. Zach will be here next week. He probably has like a year's worth of jokes stored up for you, okay? So you can just wait for that. But Zach, this is the life, Zach's weekends the last couple weeks have been like this. This weekend, before services, he met with a family who had just lost a loved one, and they were walking through that together. During services last night, he was overseeing baby dedication. This morning, he's actually officiating the wedding of someone who volunteers as a key part of this campus right here. Last weekend, Zach jumped in to teach last minute at our high school camp because the speaker backed out last minute. And then the weekend before that, he took a well-deserved, much-needed weekend off. You guys have an incredible campus pastor, okay? I mean, Zach just does an incredible job. He'll be back here next week, but for this week, I've got 3 announcements for us. And the first one is this: our internship program is taking applications for the next 2 weeks. And so you can go online, get more information. You can register there. They're due March 14th. Go to flatironschurch.com/internship. Just want to say to everybody watching online, if you're in the ages of 18 to 30 and you've wondered, what might it look like to be in vocational ministry, to partner up with the way Flatirons is trying to bring the awesome life of Christ to a lost and broken world? This is a great opportunity. When I lived in Kentucky in youth group, I grew up in Jim's youth group, actually. And then after I went to college, I did an internship at that church. And doing that internship at that church is actually one of the reasons that I'm out here in Colorado at Flatirons today. And so if you've ever wondered if ministry might be something that you would want to look at, that you'd want to spend your life doing, this is a great opportunity. So check that out. Get more information online. The second thing is this: we have our grief workshop on March 14th. It's an all-day seminar. Now, here's what we know about grief workshop. We believe that the church has a responsibility to the people who are a part of it, that when we're walking through difficult situations like the death of a loved one, this is a time for the church to just bring our arms around people who are hurting. And grief workshop is the way that we do that. And so there's a large format one-day seminar that just kind of walks through the process of grief, helps you process some of those emotions. But then what happens is it'll pair you up in a group of people who understand what it's like, and you'll have a trained facilitator who's there to just walk alongside you for 8 more weeks after that. And so if you are grieving the loss of someone that you love, I just want to encourage you, sign up for the grief workshop March 14th here at the Lafayette campus. You can do that online or go ask at the groups wall. And then the last thing, last week we announced that our groups are open for the spring semester in 2020. We still have some groups that are open, so you can register for those groups both at the groups wall, or if you're online, you can register for them online. We still have a couple groups available for you. Well, this weekend, we're launching a new series that's going to take us all the way up to Easter. I'm super excited about it. It's called Famous Last Words, where we're going to look at the famous last words of Jesus on the cross. Ben's going to join us in just a minute and share those first famous last words. Before he does that, let's pray together and then welcome Ben to the stage. God, I know how all of us walk in here. God, we walk in here. Some of us had a great week, and others of us, this week is one for the books, and we're just struggling. But God, no matter how we walked in this room, there's one thing that's similar for all of us, whether we believe in Jesus or not. We do want to know, what does God have to say about life? What does God have to say about us? And God, we've got that opportunity this morning to hear what Jesus says about us. So God, I pray that you would make it crystal clear what Jesus has to say about us. God, will you give us the ears to hear? God, will you encourage us this morning? It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.
Hello. Hey, welcome. I'm Ben. I'm the teaching pastor here. Very glad you're here. For the people who've been here for a long time, can you maybe help me out and give it up for anyone in the room who this is your first time here? If that's you and this is your first time here, special welcome. Thanks for giving us a shot, even if it's just this one shot. And also thanks for even being willing to entertain giving Jesus one shot. Like, I might let you down, we might let you down, he won't, all right? I'm glad you're here. I'm definitely glad you're here for this week because we're starting this new series, Famous last words. I think it's going to be good for anyone who has followed Jesus for 120 years or whatever, and also good for anyone who has very little context for who Jesus is and what he's all about. That's what we're going to talk about in this series. Let me spend a minute at the beginning of this thing to catch us all up to speed, get us all on the same page for where we're headed, all right? Because it's called Famous Last Words, and I think all of us are familiar with the concept of famous last words. I even think there's something we're drawn to about it, right? This idea that a person can summarize their life in one sentence before they pass. Sometimes large groups of people will cling to famous last words because they encapsulate a moment that impacted all of us. Probably the most powerful, most recent example of that would be Todd Beamer's last words. A lot of us remember those. He says, "Okay, let's roll." Right? He said that before he hung up the phone on United Flight 93 on 9/11. That was right before Todd and other passengers and other flight crew members attempted to storm the cockpit and regain control of the flight. And for a while there, an entire nation of people clung to those words. Because it's they summarize the American spirit in the midst of tragedy, right? This spirit of when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Sometimes famous last words can kind of summarize a person's craft or a person's character. So Leonardo da Vinci, as an example, he's, one of the most famous artists who will ever live for the rest of history. His last words were, "I have offended God and mankind because my work did not reach the quality it should have." That's kind of depressing, right? I mean, the guy painted the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper, for crying out loud. I don't know how he died. He obviously needed a hug that day, but even on his deathbed, he didn't think his work was good enough, right? That says a lot. It says a lot about how being the best at something still doesn't make a person feel like they're enough. What will your last words be? Have you ever thought of that? I mean, if you get that opportunity, what is the thing you want to say? What do you want to leave with your friends and your family? What do you want them to remember you by for years and years? Personally, I hope I say something beautiful, right? I hope I say something beautiful about Jesus and about my family. I hope it rhymes so that it's very catchy, you can remember it or something. My luck, my last words will probably be something stupid, let's see how many of these Jolly Ranchers I can fit in my mouth, and then I'll choke on all 20, and that's how I go. Last night, I actually had a volunteer come up and go, "How many Jolly Ranchers can you fit in your mouth?" And in my head, I was like, "I don't know, let's find out." I was like, "No, that's how you die, don't do it." This concept of famous last words, we're drawn to it, right? This idea that an individual can sum up their life and their character and passion in a single sentence right before they make that journey into the unknown from this life into the next. There's something beautiful about the concept. And so for the next few weeks in this series, we're going to take a look at some famous last words. Specifically, we're going to take a look at Jesus' famous last words. It's the 7 things he said while he was nailed to a cross. And the reason we're going to do that is because I believe everything you need to know about Jesus can be summarized in his famous last words. His character and his passion and his mission, his heart, his life is encapsulated in the last 7 things he says on the cross. And so over the course of the series, every single week, we'll take one of Jesus' famous last words, we'll take a look at it, and we're also going to tie it back into a moment from earlier in Jesus' life where he put those words into action. He put those words into practice. And the hope is, by the end of the series, we should all, maybe even for the first time, have a solid and accurate picture of who Jesus is, who he cares about, and what his mission is. And if we can do that, I think it'll change not only the way that we understand Jesus, it'll change not only whether or not we want to put our faith and trust in him, but it'll also change the way we approach ourselves and we approach other people. And so today, I'm going to give you the first of Jesus' famous last words. I'm going to give it to you right away at the top of this thing, because we're actually not coming back to it until the end of this talk. So I want you to hear it now and kind of file it away in the back of your mind. Here's the very first thing that Jesus says while he's hanging on the cross. He says this. He says, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing." Maybe you've heard that line before, maybe you haven't, but file it away in the back of your mind. Father, forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. And then we'll come back to that at the end, and in the time in between, let's see if we can fill in some gaps and understand what Jesus is getting at here. To do that, I want to tell you a story about the last time I've been truly, properly lost. Okay, this happened back when I was 19. I was living in Dallas at the time, and one day around midnight, me and 2 of my buddies, Andrew and Sean, we bought last-minute tickets to a concert the next night in Houston. All right, two things you got to understand about me and my buddies to appreciate the story. The first thing is that we liked weird music. All right, I still like weird music. At the time, we took pride in it. Like, we sought out weird music. So the tickets we bought were for this band called Sigur Rós. I don't know if you've heard of them. Obviously not. That's fine. They're weird, all right? They are an instrumental band from Iceland. The dude plays his guitar with a violin bow, and he occasionally sings in a language he invented. Don't judge me, all right? I was 19. Second of all, me and these buddies, we loved exploring cities. This is how we would spend most of our free time. Okay, I'm not condoning this. Remember, I'm 19, and I was an especially stupid 19-year-old. This is definitely, as you're about to see, one of those don't try this at home kinds of stories, but we loved exploring cities. We loved finding old abandoned places, like condemned houses and vacant malls and abandoned warehouses to go and explore. And so we buy these tickets. We're excited to see the show. We're even more excited to explore Houston. We've never spent much time there. And so instead of sleeping and leaving the next day like normal people, instead the three of us pile into Sean's bright yellow hatchback Ford Focus, and we make the 4-hour drive to Houston overnight. Our plan is to just get there. We're going to crash on couches at Sean's aunt's place. We'll wake up early and explore Houston. Now, this was before smartphones and Google Maps and readily available GPS and all that stuff. So Sean's aunt gave us some old school directions. Most of us remember old school directions, right? Very complicated, where you got to look for landmarks and all that. And so she gives us those. She's like, take exit 219, turn left. You're going to turn right at the first Circle K you see. And then when that road dead ends in the large beehive, you honk your horn to scatter the bees. You do a U-turn, complicated directions. And I'm scribbling them down, all right? At 4 a.m, we reach our exit in Houston. And immediately, Sean's like, all right, directions, let's go. And I'm reading my scribbled notes. I say, okay, turn left, and then we're going to turn right at the first Circle K that we see. Well, we drive for at least 15 minutes before we see a Circle K. And something felt off in the moment because there's like no neighborhoods around, okay? We're in this industrial section of Houston with factories and warehouses. It was a pretty creepy place in the dead of night. But we turn right at the Circle K anyway, right? We're just following directions. I think you can see where this is headed. Over the next 30 to 45 minutes, we keep winding our way deeper into this industrial section of Houston to the point where we're lost and we don't know where we're going and we don't know how to get back to the highway anymore. We don't want to call Sean's aunt, right, and wake her up at 4 a.m. And so we decide, let's turn around. We'll drive in the general direction from which we came, and hopefully we can find the highway and try again. And I will never forget what happened next, because I'm being honest when I say it's legitimately in the top 5 most terrifying moments of my life. All right, so we do this U-turn. And we're doing this U-turn right next to this massive, seemingly abandoned warehouse. And so I make a stupid suggestion. All right, I'm like, guys, while we're here, in the cover of night, who knows if we can get back here the next day, we should go explore this abandoned warehouse. They all agree. Should we have checked for no trespassing signs? Yes, of course. Did we? No, we're very stupid. And so we drive, and we're driving towards the back of the warehouse where the loading docks, and most importantly, the ladders to the roof always live, all right? So we're driving to the back of it. We round the corner to the back, and we slam on our brakes. Got to remember, this is 4 a.m., in an abandoned warehouse, no street lights. It's pitch dark outside. We can only see what is in the beam of our headlights. And at this current moment, our headlights are pointed at 4 massive dudes standing around a trash can that is on fire, like 20 yards away from us. And there is this surreal moment where the 3 of us and the 4 of them just stare at one another, like frozen. And I think we're all shocked. Me and my 3 buddies were shocked because, if I'm being honest, these guys looked terrifying, all right? They could have been like the sweetest people ever, like just finished volunteering at the homeless shelter or something. They looked terrifying. Their faces are covered in gang tats. They've got no shirts. They're ripped. They've got red bandanas around their heads. That's not a good sign in Houston. And they're burning something in a trash can. They're not doing that for warmth. All right, it's Houston in the summer. It's like 90 degrees at night. I don't know what they're burning in the trash can. I wouldn't be surprised if it rhymes with schmevidence, all right? But then these guys are staring at us because I think they're equally shocked, right? Because here are these 3 teenagers in a dangerous part of town sitting in a bright yellow hatchback Ford Focus, right? And we don't look terrifying. okay? We look like the kind of people who drove overnight to see an Icelandic instrumental band, okay? And so after a minute of staring each other down, these four guys in unison, without communicating to each other, they just start walking towards our car. And immediately I'm like, Sean, reverse, reverse, reverse. And this dumb, stupid little yellow car is just like, whee, as we reverse away. We put some distance between us. Sean throws it into drive. We haul tail out of there at the Ford Focus maximum speed of like 47 miles an hour or whatever, with these guys chasing after us in the rearview mirror. Needless to say, we were a little shaken up. And so after putting miles between us and this warehouse, we finally just call Sean's aunt and we wake her up and we explain what happened and how we got there and the street signs that we're at. And she tells us the problem. And the problem is that we made one wrong turn, and it was the first one, right? We turned left at the exit when we should have turned right. And so, of course, every turn we made after that was also wrong. And it just served to get us more and more lost. It was one wrong turn 45 minutes prior, but I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that one wrong turn nearly got us killed or at least severely beaten up. That one wrong turn put us in this place where we're lost in unfamiliar territory. We don't know what we're doing. We don't know where we're going, and we've got no roadmap, no way of getting unlost. And I know that's some, dumb story about me driving around Houston when I'm 19, but life feels that way a lot of times, doesn't it? What I mean by that is, doesn't it feel like we have these parts of our lives, maybe it's relational, so it's dating and it's marriage and it's friendships, or maybe it's our money or our careers, maybe even our identities and our self-worth. But we've got these parts of our lives where it feels like we made one wrong turn, right? We might have even made that one wrong turn decades ago, but now we're just lost. It's like ever since that first wrong turn, we can't help but make more and more wrong turns and bad decisions and choices. And so now we're just lost in this spot we never thought we'd find ourselves in. Because now we're holding divorce papers, or we're trapped in addiction, or we just have trouble even getting out of bed in the morning because we're lost in unfamiliar territory and we don't know what we're doing. We don't know where we're going, and we got no roadmap, no way of getting unlost. I don't know what that looks like for you. Maybe as an example, you took a wrong turn years and years ago. You start looking at pornography here and there because it's just easier. Right? It's just faster and less complicated than intimacy. But that one wrong turn led to another wrong turn and another and another. And now years later, you're just trapped in this addiction you never wanted for your life. Right? And you don't know what you're doing. You're in unfamiliar territory. You don't know how to get out of it. Maybe someone else spun you in the wrong direction years ago. Now, someone you thought you could trust, and they hurt you or they left you. And it's like that moment, they veered you off course. And now here you are down this other path. This path of anger and shame and guilt and bitterness and fear. It's this path that's led to all these other wrong turns, right? Here's what it's looked like in my life, at least. All right, for me, it's almost like something in my heart and in my brain turned left when it should have turned right 20 to 25 years ago. And this idea that I'm not enough and I'm never going to be enough took root in my life, and it wrapped its claws around my heart. I've spent decades lost in that territory. And of course, it's led to all these other wrong turns, seasons of depression, seasons of outright addiction. It's led to insecurity in my relationships, led to being a workaholic. I'm just like grasping at straws, trying to prove to myself I'm enough. But everything feels like wrong turn after wrong turn after wrong turn. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to get out of it. And whenever that happens to us, we just feel stuck. Right? It's like we got so turned around and sideways and lost, we can't find a way out, and so we settle. We settle for being stuck. We start to say stuff to ourselves like, this is just who I am, I guess. I'm just a functioning alcoholic, or I'm just not meant for stable, healthy relationships because I'm worthless, or I'm just gonna be a bad parent. We settle for being stuck and being lost. The question is, when we're lost and we don't know what we're doing, how do we get unlost? Now, here's my hunch. I got a hunch. And my guess is that since you're here today, or you've made it this far watching online or whatever it is, my guess is there's some part of your life that feels lost. And my guess is you already know that you don't know what to do about it. On top of that, I'd be willing to bet that because you're here, you're at least willing to entertain the possibility that Jesus might have a roadmap for you. A way to get unlost. because you're here, you're giving it a shot. And I can promise you, right, not just from personal experience, but from the experience of people close to me, from the experience of people all throughout history, I can promise you that Jesus does have the roadmap to get you unlost, I promise. Right? When you start following him and you put your faith in him, he promises to point out all of our wrong turns. Better than that, he promises to point out better turns, to get us back to the highway, right? Back to where we wanted to be in the first place, and slowly over time. Right? If it took you 10 years to get lost, it might take 10 years to get unlost. But over time, Jesus will lead you out of the mess that you found yourself lost in. I can promise that. Right? I can promise that Jesus' way of doing life is honestly, actually, legit better. I've had both versions. His is better. It's not always easier. It's not always instant. But no BS, it's better. Right? He has got the roadmap. He can get you unlost. But my hunch, my guess, is that I don't think that's where most of us get hung up. I really don't. I think most of us are cool with entertaining the idea that Jesus could get us unlost. Instead, I think the reason that we haven't taken the roadmap yet, myself included in different parts of my life, but I think the reason we haven't taken his roadmap is because we assume that if Jesus really is who he says he is, he said he was God in the flesh, if that's true, we assume he's got to be furious at us. We're afraid we have a bloodthirsty God who's out to punish us. We're worried he hates us for all the stupid, shameful things that we've done over the years, all the wrong turns we've made. At the very least, we think he's constantly, chronically disappointed in us, and we don't want to follow a God like that. I don't blame you. And so let's talk about that for the rest of our time today. And to do that, I want to take a look at a moment from Jesus' life where he encounters someone who has gotten themselves very, very lost. Right? They took one wrong turn that led to another, and they don't know what they're doing anymore. And let's just see how Jesus handles this person. Right? This is in John chapter 8. And here's how the story begins. So at dawn, he, Jesus, appeared again in the temple courts where all the people gathered around him, and he sat down to teach. At that moment, the teachers of the law and the Pharisees, these religious people, they brought in a woman caught in adultery. And they made her stand before the group. And they said to Jesus, they go, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. And in the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. We're supposed to execute people like this. So Jesus, what do you say? What do you think we should do?" And they're using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing Jesus. That might be confusing, so here's what's going on. All right, Jesus is teaching to a large crowd when he's interrupted by some religious people who are dragging a woman caught in the act of adultery, all right, caught in the act of it. And now they've dragged this poor woman in front of the crowd. Who knows if she's even had time to throw on clothes yet, and they're humiliating her. And on top of that, they're asking Jesus, "So Jesus, what do you say? Should we kill her?" They're not just humiliating her, they're terrorizing her. Now, at this time, there actually was a Jewish law that called for punishment of death for committing adultery. It's interesting to note, it called for the death of the man and the woman. These religious people didn't bother to bring the man in front of Jesus, but the law existed. And yes, it's a high standard, and yes, it's a terrible punishment. Thankfully, we don't have to live under punishments like that anymore. That's what Jesus dying on the cross is all about. He served the death sentence for anything and everything you and I could ever do wrong. But at the time, the law existed. But even when they dragged this woman in front of Jesus, you got to understand, these Jewish people live under an oppressive Roman government, and the Romans had told them it's illegal for them to execute death sentences based on Jewish law. And so the important thing to understand here is when they drag this woman in front of Jesus, they're not looking to execute her. It's illegal for them to do that. Instead, they're looking to trap Jesus. And the trap is, if Jesus says, "Sure, stone her," then he'll be arrested by the Romans, and the religious people will be happy because he'll be out of their hair. If Jesus says, "No, don't stone her," then the religious people can go, he doesn't care about Moses' law. They can discredit him, and hopefully people will stop following him. They just want people to stop following Jesus. So they're here to trap Jesus, but the way they're doing that is they're humiliating and terrorizing this poor woman. Put yourself in her shoes. How would you feel? How would you feel if you were dragged out of the Holiday Inn down the road or whatever, caught in the act, dragged in front of a crowd of people that you care about very much, and someone else is spilling the beans for you, and now everyone's got a finger in your chest, you've been caught? My guess is that most of us have probably already had a moment like that, the moment when you get caught, right? You're caught doing something that brings you shame and guilt. I know I've had moments like that. Maybe you haven't had a moment like that because you haven't been caught yet, but I bet you can imagine what it's going to feel like. What would you be thinking? If you're anything like me, you're thinking the same thing this woman is probably thinking. If she's dragged in front of Jesus and told what she's just done, she's probably thinking, I probably deserve this. And if you're going to kill me, just make it quick, right? Because anything is better than this humiliating moment right now. This is hands down the most shameful, embarrassing moment of this woman's life. And the crowd is asking Jesus, should we kill her? Here's how Jesus responds. Jesus bent down and he started to write on the ground with his finger. So he slows down and he de-escalates the situation. And when they kept on questioning him, he straightened up, he stood up, and he said to them, probably angrily, if any one of you is without sin, let him be the first to throw a stone at her. And then again, he stooped down and he wrote on the ground. Jesus' response is, he goes, sure, all right, that's the law, you're right. Okay, but the only person here who can carry out the death sentence is someone who is perfect. You've never done anything wrong in your life. And so if that's you, if you're perfect, go ahead. Basically, Jesus says, if you want to hurt this woman, you have to go through me. What is the crowd's response? Well, at this, those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left with the woman still standing there. One by one, the crowd leaves. No one in the crowd is perfect, and they know it, so they don't have a right to throw a stone, and so they disperse. And now Jesus is left all alone with this woman. And you have to understand that whatever happens next in this story is everything. And here's what I mean by that. Even if you don't believe in this Jesus, Bible, Christianity stuff right now, just go with me for a second. If Jesus really is the Son of God, and if this situation really did happen, then what Jesus does right now with this woman will have a lot to say about the kind of God that we have. I mean, again, if Jesus really is the Son of God, then he is the only person in the crowd who is perfect, which means by his own admission, he has the right to execute the death sentence right now. And so here's Jesus, with this woman's life in his hands. And then here's this woman, and 10 years ago, she never would have predicted that she'd be caught up in this affair. She definitely wouldn't have predicted that it might get her killed, right? But then here she is. She's taken wrong turn after wrong turn. She got in too deep. She's just lost right now, and she doesn't know what she's doing. She doesn't know how to get unlost. It's all caught up with her. The walls are closing in just in time for her to literally meet her maker. Whatever Jesus does next will tell us a lot about the kind of God we have. And so what does Jesus do next? Well, Jesus straightened up, he stood up, and he asked her, he goes, woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you? And she answered, she said, no one, sir. And then Jesus says, then neither do I condemn you. I don't condemn you. He says, go now and leave your life of sin. What is Jesus' response? He leads with grace and he follows with truth. He leads with grace. He says, I forgive you. You don't know what you're doing. I forgive you. And then he follows with truth. Here's a roadmap. You took a wrong turn back here. See where you took it? Don't take it again. I want something better for you. He leads with grace and follows with truth. That's way better than leading with truth and following with grace. We've all been in those relationships. Right? Those relationships that are like, if you do A, B, C, and D, you can work here, or you can date me, or I'll stay married to you. And then we assume that God is like that. If you do A, B, C, and D, then I'll forgive you. We don't see that in this story. We see that Jesus leads with grace and he follows with truth. See, somewhere along the way, you and I, we have created this illusion that if Jesus is real, if God is real, he probably hates us. Right? Or he's furious at us for screwing up day in, day out, all the time. So he's itching to punish us, or at the very least, like we think he's probably indifferent toward our pain and our suffering, and it's an illusion. It's a lie. You can't find it in the Bible. And in this story, we see who Jesus is and how he approaches us. And whether it's 2,000 years ago or it's today, Jesus starts with grace every single time. Right? Yes, he gives us truth eventually. Eventually, he gives us a roadmap, a way to get unlost in this life, but it's never his first order of business. His first order of business is always grace. It's always reminding us that his number one priority is not punishment, it's forgiveness. which means he is not holding your past or your baggage or your shame or your guilt or your mistakes or your outright failures from years ago or from today or from the future. He's not holding it over your head. I mean, just like the story with the woman, he has the right to hold it over our heads. He chooses not to. He chooses grace and he chooses truth. He says, I forgive you. And so from now on, here's a better way to drive. Here's a way to not get lost. Jesus starts with grace. That is just who he is. That is the kind of God that we have. Which is why we see him starting with grace in the first of his famous last words while he's hanging on the cross. The thing that I had you file away in the back of your mind at the beginning of this thing, because Jesus is led out with two other common criminals to be executed. And after they nail him to a cross and raise it up and set it into the ground, he speaks up for the first time. And what is the very first thing he says? He says, Father, forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. Notice what he doesn't say. He doesn't say, God, punish these people because they're being evil. He doesn't say, God, get your revenge on these people. He doesn't say, God, look at all these screw-ups. Don't ever let them off the mat for it. He doesn't say that. He also doesn't say the lie that you'll hear in some other churches. He doesn't say, God, forgive the people who have their lives pretty much sorted out and they're doing a great job of following us. He doesn't say that. Instead, Jesus' famous last words, the very first thing that he says on the cross is a prayer. It's a prayer for the people who are murdering him. It's also a prayer for people like us. His prayer is, God, forgive the people who don't know what they're doing. God, forgive the people who have taken wrong turn after wrong turn and now they're lost and they're stuck. Forgive the people who are trapped in addiction or stuck in self-hatred, the people who are at the end of their rope. Forgive the people who feel lost because they don't know what they're doing. God, forgive people like that. Just like the story about the woman, Jesus' famous last words have a lot to say about the kind of God we have. In fact, Romans 5:8 says this. It says, but God demonstrates his own love for us in this. While we were still sinners, not after we got our acts cleaned up and we memorized the books of the Bible or whatever, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. That means that Jesus chose to be nailed to the cross to demonstrate to us the kind of God we have. And to demonstrate to us the kind of love he has for us, which is why, even while hanging on a cross with death right around the corner, Jesus does not condemn, and he does not whine about all the stupid decisions you've made, and he does not punish. Instead, while covered in blood, while taking his last breaths, he says, this is the kind of God you have. You have the kind of God that would do this for you, and I forgive you for getting lost, and I forgive you for not knowing what you're doing. Jesus starts with grace. Why is that important? Well, because if you and I, whether you've been following him for 100 years or this is your first time in here, if we could trust that his first step towards us is grace, then maybe we could trust the roadmap he's given us. And if we could trust the roadmap he's given us, maybe our lives would start to change. Maybe we would start to get unlost. Jesus starts with grace, and so we should too. Over the next few weeks, as we continue looking at Jesus' famous last words, and as we continue painting a clearer picture of who he is and who he cares about and what his goal is for our lives, let's start where Jesus starts. All right, let's start with grace. What I mean by that is let's begin to actively let go of the lies we've been told or the lies that we've told ourselves. The lie that God hates us, he's furious with us, he's itching to condemn us, and he loves rules for the sake of rules because he's controlling. Let's let go of that lie and try hanging on to the truth that we see in the Bible. The truth that God is good, he loves us, he wants good for our lives, and he's not throwing rules our way, he's throwing better directions. A better way to drive, a way to not get lost. He has forgiven the people like us, the people who don't know what we're doing, because he starts with grace. And so to end this thing today, we're going to start with grace. All right, one of the ways that we do that sometimes is we take communion. All right? Now, just so you know, communion, there's nothing magical about it. All right, it is a symbol. It's a reminder of what Jesus has done for us on the cross. So the little piece of bread is a reminder of his body that was nailed to the cross. And the little thing of juice is a reminder of his blood that was shed on the cross. When we take communion, it's a reminder. Specifically, it's a reminder that you are forgiven. It is a reminder that even in your most shameful, humiliating moments, Jesus took a step towards you, and his first step was grace. He forgives you. You're forgiven. He gives us grace, and it's not some cheap grace, right, that he's just got kind of laying around and he throws it out based on whether or not he likes you. It's a costly grace. It cost him something. He earned it. He paid for it on the cross. Communion here at Flatirons is not some super exclusive thing either, right? Don't got to fill out a card or be a theologian or ace some spiritual quiz or whatever. Communion is for anyone who can genuinely, in this moment, say to Jesus, I'm not sure I have you figured out. I'm not sure I ever will have you figured out, but I want what you did on the cross to be true for my life. So please start with grace when it comes to my life, Jesus. If you feel like you can honestly, genuinely say that right now, then by the power invested in me, well, however it works, you're in, take communion with us, all right? So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna pray, and then we're gonna take a minute to reflect, all right? And then after that, we're gonna shift tone, okay? Because usually communion is something that's, kind of very somber and reflective, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we're gonna shift the tone to be celebratory. Right, where there's this song that the band is going to play, and when they start playing, you can stand. You can sing along if you want. It's a new song we've never heard. We picked it because the words are powerful. So you can stand and sing, or you can stand and reflect, but it's a song that celebrates. And in the song, you're going to hear this theme of His grace is the only thing that's going to make me want to change, and I believe that's true. I believe that you sitting around feeling bad about what you've done, bad about who you are, is not going to inspire you to take His roadmap and get unlost. I think that you sitting around and apologizing over and over to Jesus for having to die, for how stupid I am, I don't think that's going to make us change direction. I think the only thing that's going to make us change direction is if we celebrate what Jesus did for us on the cross. We have a God like that. We have a God who gives us that kind of grace. If we can celebrate that, maybe we'll change direction. Pray with me. God, whether we were told by someone else or we came to the conclusion on our own, we have just got this terrible version of who you are in our heads. We've got this terrible version that you're just this whiny, controlling God who's constantly mad at us for not living up to the standard of perfection. God, you're bigger than that, you're stronger than that, and it's not who you are. God, I pray over the next few weeks we get a clear and accurate picture of who you really are, because who you really are is awesome and good, and you love us and you want good for our lives, and you lovingly, gently steer us towards a better direction. You go, see your wrong turn back here, you made it back here, I forgive you for it. Let's go back to the highway and let's start again. God, you lovingly walk side by side with us as you help us to get unlost. God, thank you for that kind of grace. God, for anyone in the room who's confused by you right now, I pray for those people, God. Can you speak up in their lives? Can you in some tangible way, God, this day or throughout the rest of the week or throughout the rest of the series, just give them little moments that you're here and that you care about them. God, for the rest of us, don't ever let us shy away from your grace. God, help put us into the place where we can celebrate who you are and what you've done for us and live out of that joy. God, I thank you for the kind of grace you offer us. I thank you so much for your Son, Jesus Christ, who sealed it and made it a promise for us. And it's in His holy name that I pray. Amen.
God, I'm on my knees.
please again. God, I'm begging, please again. I need you. Oh, I need you. Walking down these desert roads, water for my thirsty soul. I need you. Oh, I need you.
Your forgiveness is like sweet